It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Onyx News. I'm your host, Margie K. We're here every Friday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This evening, I have a special guest on, a good friend of mine, and boy, does she know about UFOs. So we're going to be talking about that this evening. But first, I want to remind you to get your 2025 calendar at unxnetwork.com. We have made a really cool calendar for you with very strange official national days on it. So that will be something fun to do. Also, the latest magazine is out. Our January issue is available at unxnetwork.com, and you can purchase that in print, or if you are a member of the Onyx Network with one of our paid memberships, you receive a digital copy of the magazine. And then on our top tier, you receive a print copy of the magazine quarterly. So check that out at unxnetwork.com. So tonight, subject is UFOs and drones, of course. My guest is Debbie Ziegelmeyer. She's a business owner in Imperial, Missouri, and the state director of Missouri MUFON. She's a member of the MUFON Business Board of Directors and the director of the MUFON Underwater Research and Recovery Team. You probably guessed that she's a certified PADI diver and instructor. She's also a member of Ted Phillip's S.I.U team, and in 2004 organized the MUFON Dive Team along with Tom Ferrario. Debbie has over 1,200 completed UFO investigations, with over 860 of them being MUFON sighting reports. She's been a Roswell 1947 crash investigator for over 25 years and is a conference and festival speaker nationwide. She's appeared on several TV shows, including The Alaska Triangle and others, and on multiple radio shows. Debbie's the author of The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, a reference guide to water-related UFOs, and the 50th anniversary of the Southeast Missouri UFO flap. Welcome to the program, Debbie.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for joining me again. It's been a while. It's been a minute. And so we needed to just get back together and get updated on all the latest and greatest things that you're doing and talk about your books. Let everybody know these are both really good books. But first of all, what is your role as the state director of Missouri MUFON? What do you do?
Oh, well, when a person has a sighting, they go to MUFON.com, file a MUFON report. Those reports are issued to the state director, and there is a state director for all 50 states. And also, I believe we have 43 countries across the world. So I'm the state director. So any cases that are Missouri sightings come to me, and then I assign them to one of, I believe we have 14 or 15 investigators. They kind of come and go. And from there, we investigate it just like a police report. We take these very, very seriously. We contact the witness. We have sources that we check. So we don't just say, okay, this light in the sky. We go to Heavens Above website and make sure it's not something celestial. We go to Flight 24 radar and rule out airplanes. We rule out, like I said, satellites, planets, stars, that type of thing. Lately, we've had a problem with drones. We'll probably talk about that later. Yeah. Balloons, drones. But we do a very thorough investigation. And when we can't figure out what this is when it's not something that's explained, that's explainable, whether or not it's man-made or the natural phenomenon, then it's an unknown.
How many, on average, reports does Missouri get monthly?
Oh, it varies. We were averaging about 200 sightings a year, and then it dropped down in the last year, and now we're just flooded with sightings again. I think the last time I looked, we had, it was 25 or 26 open cases that we have investigators working on. So some months we may get 20 cases, and then maybe the next month we get 10. So it kind of varies. And then also too, and we're one of the most active states. We're always in the top 10 for sightings most of the time, like in the top 6, which is, you think there's, states like Texas and California, would have a lot of sightings. California, of course, is always at the top. They're a very large state. But it depends too. We'll have, sometimes there's an area that's active and everything that we get in are boomerang or triangle shaped craft. And then other times it's just strange balls of light. And then another time, all of a sudden there's a rash of the Tic Tacs. So it kind of varies. And that really makes it a little bit more credible too, more easier to investigate when you have a lot of people. You don't have one here and there when you have a massive amount of people that pretty much are reporting the same thing and in the same area.
Yeah, and Missouri has had several flaps, if you will, going back to before Piedmont, but Piedmont was probably the biggest, don't you think?
I think so. Yeah, 1973. It actually started in 68, into 68, beginning into 1969, but the biggest, the most well-known sighting started in February of 1973. And that was when Coach Reggie Bone and his basketball players sighted a craft. And then I believe there were about 200 reports just that one day, including Edith Boatwright, who had this incredible drawing that she made. And but several reports. This went on so long that Professor Harley Rutledge from I guess that would be, but they keep changing the names of the colleges. It's been Missouri State, Southern Missouri State, from the university in Cape Girardeau. Mm-hmm. And he ended up, he decided that there was a second sighting in March by Gene Coleman and Kathy Leach over Clearwater Lake. So after that, in April, Professor Harley, yeah, there we are. That's Gene Coleman. She has a very nice dress shop right there in town. Mm-hmm. So in April of 1973, Harley Rutledge asked, I guess, the head of the college, of the university, for funds to go and investigate, so take the people and go and investigate Piedmont. They gave him funds for 2 weeks. He ended up staying all the way until 1980. So it extended on to 7 years of investigations. And actually the first night that he was there, they had a sighting. They had blue lights in the woods and strange lights overhead that were dancing in the sky. It's still very active area.
And then he did most of his study from Farmington Airport, correct?
He did. He set up right by the little wind. I guess, what do they call that?
The windsock.
Yeah, windsock. There you go. He set up by the windsock, and they had a sighting there that it was incredible. He had another student, the owner of the airport at the time, and the owner's son happened to be there when they set this up. I believe it was May of 1973. And this light came down, and they thought it was a plane that was going to land at night. And it came down just near to landing and then just moved right over their heads and moved off into the distance. And then the student that was with them said, "Professor, it turned on FAA lights, but the green light is on the left and the red light is on the right going away." Well, that's opposite. So this should have been, the plane was either flying in reverse or upside down. But that's actually his book, Harley Rutledge. Well, it's still not available online, but Harley Rutledge has a book, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of it.
Project Identification.
There you go. Thank you. Project
Yeah.
Identification.
I don't know why my brain just decided to work.
I've got the book, and you
Yeah.
can download it online too. The book is hard to find in print, but it is available online to download.
Yeah. It's very expensive in print, but it is free, I think, through Google.
Right.
On Google
And
Books.
it's, I mean, there's some incredible sightings in there. And in this book here that Margie and I put together, there's newspaper articles all the way from 1973, you know, a lot of them in the 1970s of the sightings that happened in and around that area. Very interesting things, including a truck driver who had I believe that was October 8th of 1973. And he had a sighting just about 8 miles north of Cape Girardeau on 55 South.
Mm-hmm.
It was at 6:30 in the morning. And his last name was Webb. And the light, as he looked out the window at it, the craft flashed at him and burned his face. And his wife was riding along with him. They went in, and Cape Girardeau took him to the hospital. He had radiation burns, and he lost his sight temporarily, but permanently, I believe about 15% of his peripheral vision. And the reason I brought that up is that was also in 1973, and the gentleman filed a workman comp claim because he was working at the time. And as far as I know, he was the only person that won a workman's comp claim from an injury while at work caused by a UFO.
Yeah,
Missouri.
It was just a very strange, weird thing, and typical of Missouri. You know, we do have a lot going on here, that's for sure. And just so everybody knows, you are in the St. Louis area. I'm in Kansas City.
Right.
So we're at opposite ends of the state. But the state is very active. And for that 1973 flap, about how many reports were called into the authorities?
Oh, my gosh. I had a whole list of them. They're in the book. I think it was something like, was it 1,200? There were numerous reports. A lot of them. I mean, some of the reports, I know that there's a list that's about a page long that Harley Rutledge had broke down, and these are just the reports that he had collected. There were the amount of sightings, 30 or 40 that were close encounter type, you know, where they were, you know, close enough to see an actual, some kind of a structure. So yeah, it was very, very interesting. Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting time. 7 years. And can you imagine that, asking for funds for two weeks and extending it to 7 years and a huge investigation. And the book is very good because everything's technical. And in fact, we had another sighting in St. Clair that mirrored that one. And that was in, I believe it was 2000, probably about 3 years ago. The same thing where we had a light that came through the trees, came near over our head. It was Russ Payne and one of our field investigators, and Mel Van Vickel, who's our chief investigator, and myself and the witness. And this light came across Interstate 44, across Highway 66, Route 66, went through the trees, came just almost over our head, and then made a turn to our, I guess it would be our right. It made a left-hand turn, got altitude about, 700-800 feet altitude, and then turned on FAA lights, and it was a green on the left and a red on the right, which means, you know, that's
right.
It's opposite. Unfortunately, when Harley Rutledge caught it, his student, I believe his last name was Wilson, his student got a picture in black and white, and it's in the book. Fortunately for us, almost 50 years later, when I was videotaping, and I got it in color on videotape. Mm-hmm. And so Mel Van Vickel, our chief investigator, was able to analyze that frame by frame by frame. And also, it was the same that Harley Rutledge, Professor Rutledge had described that the lights, the green and the red light were so close together, there really wasn't room in between for any type of a fuselage for a plane, for no type of structure. Mel was able to go frame by frame and find the same thing in my video, that the lights were just too close together to have too much of structure in between.
What do you think that is with the lights being too close together or on opposite sides of the craft? What do you think is causing that?
Good question. I don't think it's ours. We know it wasn't a drone. I did a presentation and showed the video, and I had a gentleman say, well, that's an airplane. And I said, the lights are on the wrong side. He goes, well, I'm a pilot. And he said, it was coming at you. And I said, no, it was going away from us. And he said, it's got to be a plane. Maybe it's a helicopter. And I said, it was a light that came through the trees. And I said, it's a true unknown. You don't have a light that, I don't know what's an average tree? You know, I mean, big trees are probably 60 foot, 50, 60 foot up. This thing,
or, 80 maybe.
And maybe, okay, so you figure half of that, 35, 40 feet, it came through the trees. This was on a January 5th. And so there were no leaves on the trees. And we clearly saw this thing come right through the branches. So it wasn't a large structure. And then airborne, and it was a bright white light, no blinking or anything, solid light. And then to make its way into, take altitude and then turn on lights, it just seemed to me it was obviously under intelligent control and intelligent enough to fool us. Now, why the lights would be on there, I've always had people say, well, why do UFOs turn lights on? They don't need lights to see. And I thought, well, but they don't need lights to see, but there's other things in the sky like us, and they want to make sure that one of our aircraft doesn't hit them. And so they know that our FAA lights are red and green. I don't think they even considered the fact that they're on certain sides. They just figured put a green and a light on there, turn a green and red light on, and people will think it's an airplane. And most of us would, unless you stop and think about it. And then we looked at the video, and poor Mel, I think his second case, and he said, the lights are on the wrong side. I said, I got it on tape. So I would say it wasn't anything of ours. I believe it'd be otherworldly, because if it was something that was our government, they would put the lights on the right side. They wouldn't even think about it. They would just place them there. But I'm still wondering how it came through the trees and so small. So it was truly an unknown, because it had to have changed size and shape to be able to come through the trees like that, and then make its way airborne, and then turn on FAA lights. And that is truly unexplained, unknown.
Well, I think that's probably one of the neatest things, coolest things about being a UFO investigator, is that when you get out in the field, you get to see your own stuff. You get to see it firsthand. And you've seen a lot. I know you have, and you have some nice equipment. What is the name of that good camera that you use?
Oh, that's a psionics. Let's see. I guess it's a psionics. Night vision video camera, takes still and night vision. We got it on Amazon, so I mean it's easy enough to look up. But just look up night vision, military grade night vision. But it would be SYI, psionics. I guess I could grab the camera. It's just it's out of hand reach.
Yeah, that's okay. What I like about your camera is that it views things at quite a distance, whereas a straight normal night vision monocular or binoculars or camera is not going to do that. So, and that is a little more expensive than most, but it sure does. It's just excellent quality.
But it's comparable, because I've had cameras all the way back. I had night vision on my original Sony camera, and it was one of the big ones that you had to carry around. You had to carry a pack with you. And then I got one that was a little bit smaller, and it took cassettes. That one, the night vision, and that was phenomenal. Then the next generation that came out, my husband buys me these type of things for Christmas. I got some great binoculars for Christmas this year that are rangefinder binoculars.
Oh,
but then the next generation that came out, it had little bitty CDs. Well, the problem with that was the camera, the generation before, I could see, I went to Colorado, I could see the mountains night vision. The newest version, I could see about 10 foot was it. And I just put that aside and used the ones with the little cassettes, and then just bought up all the cassettes I could find until I got this camera. And it's now I can point it up and see the stars. I can videotape stars. So I can videotape satellites at stars. We can also, when we analyzed, Mel analyzed this video that showed this craft, and then we saw other lights in the sky. He was able to go back to Flight Radar 24 and name all the different planes in the area. He was able to identify everything. He was picking up planes 120 miles away with this. That's how far away the light was. So he got everything in the area, all the stars, all the planets, all satellites, everything, and narrowed it down. And we have no idea what that was. But that's the nice thing about the camera. You can pick up, you don't need a whole lot of light either to be able to pick something up.
Yeah. Now, one of the strangest things that's going on right now, of course, are these drone sightings that started in New Jersey and then expanded. Now they're all over the world. And I've even had a couple of my own sightings, and you did as well. Let me just show this video real quick, and then like to hear how you got this. Yeah, where were you when you got this?
Well, I was on my deck, and it was kind of funny because I have an iPhone 14, and it would only take it just for a few seconds, and then my camera shut off and said not enough light. I've taken fireworks and everything with my camera. It just didn't want to stay on. I was sitting in my living room, and I saw this bright light go by low, and I ran outside, grabbed that picture, grabbed that one. First, there was no sound. Then it totally blinked out, and I heard this loud sound, and then it came back on again. So I was showing that video on December 18th at our local MUFON meeting, and we were talking about the drones. Our meeting ends at 7:45, and it's just, I guess it's probably about 6-7 miles from my house north. I was heading home right around 8 o'clock. By the time I packed up the equipment and we talked a little bit outside, I got on Highway 55 south from 141. I got right to the Richardson Road exit, which is the next exit south. And I looked up, and here's this drone coming at me, the size of a vehicle. Now, of course, I had my cell phone was zipped in my pocket. I didn't expect to try and get something through the windshield, which I couldn't anyway. This thing was so big, coming right at us, using the highway kind of as a path. And I watched it, and I thought, oh my gosh, and it was square, and it had 2 green lights, 2 red lights. And it was just completely square, and it, kind of turning. Cars, everybody saw it. Cars were slamming on the brakes. The car in front of me almost rear-ended an 18-wheeler in front of them. People were hitting the side of the road. I mean, just swerving, looking up at this thing. And just before it got to me, it made a turn to the east and went toward Illinois. We checked Flight Radar 24, and there was a helicopter in the area. But the thing was that the helicopter came from north to south, and just as it got over the Merrimack River, it made a sharp turn and went back in the same direction north. Well, where I got on the highway was well south of that. So I could see the path. I mapped out where I got on 55 south, and all this action went on behind me. So even though there was a helicopter in the area, I wouldn't have seen it because I was looking south and the helicopter was behind me making a U-turn. So it wasn't what I saw. I also had the Chinese balloon the same way outside my house.
Right.
Back, I believe that was February of 2023, I believe is when that was. We have the Geospatial Government Mapping Agency 4.1 miles north of me. And this is, I guess they gather intelligence information. I can go on ahead and say that because I got that off their website. They gather.
Yeah, it's not top secret.
It's not top secret.
Well, on the outside.
And it's right across the street from Home Depot, and they even tell you where it is. There's even a map that shows we're across the street from Home Depot. So they're not hiding anything. You can't get in, but they gather more intelligence information there in one day than the rest of the world gathers up in the same day. So I believe that's why there's been drone activity just within a couple days. So my meeting was on Wednesday. I took that video the Tuesday before. So 8 days later, there's another drone. Then after that, it's been raining and overcast and cold.
So that drone was headed in that direction, correct?
The drone I believe, came from the mapping. The federal mapping agency, and it looked like it was heading towards Scott Air Force Base. That's the direction when I watched it. But I believe what it did was that it went south. It probably was south, maybe monitoring. I couldn't say because by the time I saw it, it had left that area. But when I saw it, it was coming from south to north, and it was right in the area of the government mapping facility.
All right. Well, we are up on a short break, and we'll be back right after these messages.
Ray Hobbs here for the Unnext Network as we present a health and wellness, spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. They apply Cathara energy work with all of their plants and products. All of their products are made in small batches and third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farms topical salve. It comes in 1 ounce and half-ounce sizes made with all natural ingredients. And from now until January 2nd, use promo code KUNX Holiday for an additional 15% off all CBD products. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unnext Network website at unnextnetwork.com. That's UNXNetwork.com. Promo code KUNX Holiday. The Unnext Network classes and workshops are enrolling now for 2025. If you're interested in psychic protection, chakra balancing, dowsing, or perhaps healing with sound and music, visit unnextnetwork.com to see our complete series of live and on-demand classes and workshops hosted by the one and only Margie K. For example, in January 2025, you could spend 4 Saturdays with Margie for her exclusive live remote viewing workshop. Margie K is one of the most accomplished remote viewers in the world, and she will share her secrets and totally unique methods in this course. Some courses are open now. Seating is limited for these live courses, so register now at unnextnetwork.com. Unnext members use promo code XMEM for an additional 15% discount.
Debbie Ziegelmeyer is an experienced diver, dive trainer, and UFO investigator who has researched sites around the world that have water-related UFO activity. Know that even the Pentagon admits that there are unknown objects in the skies and underwater around the world. Debbie compiled an amazing book to catalog many of these sightings. The Alien Colonization of Earth's Waterways, a reference guide to UFO, USO, water-related activity, has received rave reviews by UFO researchers and the public. The book is available at Amazon.com. Well, that was appropriate for our next topic we're going to discuss with Debbie Ziegelmeyer this evening, and that is underwater UFOs. Debbie, how did you get into studying underwater UFOs?
Interesting question. My husband and son decided they wanted to become scuba divers. I did not. At the time, I was afraid of water. And they got so excited. They loved it so much that for Christmas/birthday, my birthday's in January, that I got dive equipment and classes. So there I found myself a scuba diver in 2001, the weekend after 9/11. I was certified. And that same year, I became a MUFON field investigator. So there I am, new to both of these. And just the underwater world was incredible. And being that was my first year as a field and MUFON field investigator, of course, I'm looking at all the stuff underwater and I'm looking up and then I'm thinking, that's what piqued my interest, I guess, because the both of them, it happened so closely. And I thought, I started doing research. Is what happened on water sightings. And I found out there weren't that many people that were researching it. And so I started gathering information, and then people said, "Oh, you're a scuba diver." And then John Schuessler, bless his heart, he's our former international director and also one of the founders of MUFON. He started mailing me snail mail. He would mail me everything on water. And also Dr. Robert Wood, who, bless his heart, recently passed away, but he also was mailing me things. And then I'd go to conferences and then people said, "Oh, you're that water person." So before I knew it, I was the water person kind of by default. Oh, and then real quick, and I looked it up. Oh no, and it just went off my camera. It's the camera that I have is Psionics. And so if you want a spelling for that, it's SIONYX Aurora Pro.
Okay,
So
perfect.
that's the underwater. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not underwater. That's the night vision camera. If you're interested in looking at things, because it will pick up things in the sky that you can't see with your naked eye, or if you can see them, it gives you better definition. And where we would see one very bright light, it would pick up other lights that were also in the area that weren't visible.
Good to know. Good to know. Now, you had your own UFO sighting while you were on a cruise a few years ago. I think this was 2006.
January 25th of 2006. Yes.
Okay.
Did you want me to talk about that or?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was, that was the second cruise. I've been on 10 now, but that was our second cruise. And we were, I spent all day in St. Martin scuba diving. So I didn't get to see St. Martin. And as we left, so we got on the ship at about 4:30. When you go scuba diving off of a cruise ship, they take you right from the ship, right to the dive boats, and then they bring you right back, and then you don't get to see anything at all. So while everybody else was in the ship, everybody was boarding, I got back at 4:30. I was completely changed, and I thought I'm going to go outside and at least take pictures of St. Martin because I didn't get to see it. So as the ship is leaving, I'm one of those people that's taking pictures of sunsets and everything else. And nobody else was outside. They were all in getting ready for dinner or formal dinner or taking, pictures, getting professional pictures. I'm the only person out there except for the crew. And we got about 20 minutes from St. Martin out to the ocean, headed toward St. Thomas. And I looked off to, I guess that'd be the starboard side of the ship. And there were these two craft. I mean, they looked about the size of cars. They were pivoting like left to right and then making small kind of circles, almost like a figure eight circle, and pivoting left to right. I didn't see there's another one up at the top that was being formed by it's kind of in the clouds. So my first reaction as a field investigator was I looked behind me. I thought something was reflecting on the water from the ship. And when I turned back around, we were leaving them behind, and there they still were. I took off running, and I got this one good picture. The odd thing about it was this was January 25th all my camera settings reset. I think what 11 days, let's say about 11 days later to February 5th. So every picture I took from then on started February 5th, and then the 6th, and then the 7th. The time was 7 hours off. So my pictures were 11 days, 7 hours off from that moment forward. So I talked to the crew. They wouldn't let me talk to the captain. I was the only one that saw this, but I did have a picture.
Wow.
Yeah. And the interesting thing was I was scuba diving all day. We get 20 miles from shore, and then I see UFOs, out the. But I was underwater, so I guess I wouldn't have seen them. They were hovering over the top.
They never do what you want them to do.
No,
right? No. They've got their own agenda, so it's just you happen to be in the right place at the right time. You might get
in the water all day, and then I have to get out of the water and back on the ship before I see anything.
Well, that's I think one of the most spectacular couple photos that you got of UFOs near or in water.
Yeah,
and then the second one forming, that it was just awesome.
Well, there was two there, and then the third one forming over the top.
That one there on the left-hand corner there.
Yeah, there's one on either corner, and then the one at the top all the way at the left.
Yeah.
It's starting to form, and I didn't even see that until later on. And I'm not sure if they were camouflaged in with the clouds, which is interesting, and then going into the water, or if they had just come out of the water and then we're going to go up. But if you've ever been on a cruise ship, this thing was really moving fast. And I got the one picture, and I was running to the back of the ship. I got the one trying to get another one. I was dodging lifeboats and the plexiglass and chairs, and I got another one through plexiglass, and it wasn't near as good. I only caught one of them. So I don't really know. We left them behind.
Yeah, that's opposite of what it normally is. And you talked about the time difference with your phone. A lot of times our witnesses will tell us, I mean, as investigators, we've heard that a lot, where cell phones will mess up, microwaves, anything with a clock, there will be some time anomaly along with a UFO sighting. But this is also happening right now with the drone sightings.
Yes.
And I wonder, what do you think? Do you have any opinion as to what might be causing that?
Well, I can start back with the Chinese balloon. Saw it once again off of the back deck of my house. The balloon was up there for 2.5 hours. I got home from work at 4:30. I looked over, I looked at it, grabbed my cell phone. I took 3 pictures, and my cell phone went dead. So then I went in and got my little Sony, my little HP Handycam video camera. I took 3 or 4 pictures, and then I started videotaping with that. After 2 minutes, it wouldn't focus anymore, and it got blurry. Then I took my Psionics Aurora camera, because it was there for 2.5 hours, so it started to get dark. And when I took several pictures and 2-3 videos, when I went to copy the little scan disk, put it onto my computer, it said it didn't copy to them. So I think the same thing. This time around, when I went outside with the drone, my cell phone, like I said, iPhone 14, it took that was a kind of a loop that you were showing. It took 5 seconds, and then it came across the screen of my camera that said, "I'm sorry, it's too dark." I thought, what? I take pictures outside all the time with that camera. I took another one, lasted 9 seconds. Another one lasted about 11 seconds, but they weren't as good as that one because it was moving away. I think whatever it was is the same reaction I got from the Chinese balloon. I believe it was something that was gathering information from that government facility 4.1 miles north of me. And I spoke with somebody who used to work there, and he said that they have, since that happened to my camera, that if that Chinese balloon was trying to gather information from that facility, it would be blocking it. And so whatever caused my video, 3 cameras, 3 different EMF reactions, my cell phone, the HP camera, and the psionics, all 3 of them I had a problem with. And this person told me that the facility is doing something to block them from gathering the data, and just enough to block it, but not enough to destroy any one of my pieces of equipment. I think the same thing happened when I tried to take a picture of this drone. I had the same thing. My camera, to me, it seemed like it malfunctioned. And I think it was doing the same thing. It was heading over to that facility and maybe trying to gather information and got blocked. I mean, it just seems like the same kind of reaction from the same point both times I was on my deck.
Some type of frequency is being emitted either by something of ours or whatever this is.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to show you a video that I took of a drone here just a couple of weeks ago that my husband and I chased for 45 minutes.
Oh,
and
wow.
It ended up, and that's a still.
That's great.
And it ended up, and this is towards the beginning of our chase. It's headed towards Sugar Creek, and it went over a refinery there. And then that is another one of the still photos. Here's the video.
It's dead still.
It's red, green, and white.
I bet that is a drone. It is not moving. Period.
Zoom out. So that was my husband freaking out a little bit there. He has never seen a UFO or anything like that.
How can he be around you and never see a UFO? Every time you and I get together, we get in trouble.
I know. I mean, yeah, you and I attract them, but no, he may have seen one a few years ago, but he thinks alcohol might have been involved in that. So it's not 100%. But yeah, he's just one of those guys that doesn't see it, doesn't notice it. But yeah, he got involved in this one because he was driving and he was chasing that thing. And we followed it to Sugar Creek, and it stopped over Sugar Creek for quite some time. We called a UFO witness there, Valerie, that, we've known for years, that, she's seen UFOs there for years. And she got in her car. She got to it before we did. It was over the refinery, and she got some really good still photos, which I don't have here this evening, but they were good photos. What do you think these things are, Debbie?
I don't know. I know that they're not the public, because when I went to MUFON has boot camps. I went to boot camp in Wickenburg, Arizona. This has been back 10 years ago. Mark D'Antonio, he's on several different TV shows. He's the person on these UFO specials that's one of the photo analysts. He had a drone. And at the boot camp, he was trying to trick us up. And I caught him, my sister and I, firing up this drone and putting it airborne to try and fool us into thinking it was a UFO. So I know what the size of a larger, that he had, it was a good sized drone. And I know what it looks like in the sky, and it was small. It tiny, the lights with altitude. I've also seen, my brother has a smaller drone than that in the sky. So I know what drones look like that belong to the public. These things are big. The one that I saw was the size of a car. The one that one that was coming down the highway, I saw it from quite a distance away. And It got bigger and bigger and bigger. I have no idea. I think if they were just ours, they would say something. I don't like the idea of the secrecy. Right. You don't not inform the public when you're flying that many drones around, when we just, what, a year or so ago, a little over a year ago, had a Chinese balloon across our country. Of course we're going to be suspicious. And so they have, especially New Jersey, when you have a massive amount. I've also seen video that aren't drones, but they're not airplanes either. They're orbs or some type of ball of light. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if these are our government drones, very large ones, which I've seen riding down the road. I had people that gave me a call and said, we have a UFO on a flatbed. And I don't know if you've ever seen one, but it looks like a UFO. They put it on a flatbed, and then they take the wings and they put it behind them. And so these things, the wingspan is the size of a huge aircraft. Some of these things they're big, and so I know that we have big drones, but they're not square unless it's a technology we don't know. But if it is, why are they flying so many drones over government facilities? Then they're saying, well, it's just centered around New Jersey. Well, they had 50 of them that a police officer saw come out of the water and then go back in. Now, that's that's a lot of drones, and then coming in and out of the water. And they're not just in New Jersey, they're across the country. And I saw that drone with my own eyes. I know what I saw, and no one can tell me any different. The thing was the size of a car. And I know the vicinity it was in, and I'm suspicious because of the Chinese balloon. So what was it doing over there? If it's what's a government drone doing over by a government facility? Is it guarding the government facility? Do they have to do that? Can't we do that by satellite? I don't think these are, I don't think they're all UFOs, but I think there are some UFOs involved in this now. And I think these drones are from another country.
Well, we seem to have an uptick in UFO sightings across the board, not just Missouri, but everywhere. And the National UFO Reporting Center, MUFON, and other places are getting a lot more UFO reports. And then we also have the drones in addition to that. And nobody really knows, are the drones UFOs? Are the drones from a bad actor? Or are they ours? There's just no answers forthcoming. And look how long it's been. It's been weeks since this started.
It's scary, because you should know we do this because we feel like, and I know you feel the same way, we should know what's in our sky. When you have Project Blue Book and what was it, 701 unidentified, when J. Allen Hynek was identifying some of these UFOs as swamp gas, and you still got that many that they came out, they couldn't come up with even that bad of an explanation. We shouldn't have anything over our skies that we don't know exactly what it is. And that's why I investigate, and I'm sure you do too. We need to know what's there. That's why the government hearings, that's why Congress is so upset. That's why they started with a congressional hearing in, I believe it was July of 2023. And then we just had another one in November of this year. And you have people like David Grush and Lou Elizondo. You have these different people that are coming forward and saying, hey, there is something out there. Lou Elizondo said there are things there in the sky overhead, and they're not ours. And David Grush said that in the hearing in 2023, he plainly, when he asked, he plainly said, we have at least 12 that he knows of that are otherworldly craft. And he was asked by a congresswoman if there were any pilots. And he said, I'd have to tell you that in the skiff, which, that's behind closed door, where they take away your phone, they let you see the information, and you can't take anything out. So now but you can't tell anybody else. And so we have pilots, we have at least 12 craft. And a year later, a year and a half later, that Congress was mad because they hadn't made any progress. It was a year and a half. They hadn't made any progress in informing the public or Congress as to what's going on. All they got was more and more secrecy, and the more questions they asked, the more secrecy there is. And they've come right out and said, yeah. In fact, in I believe it was July of 2022, the Pentagon decided, when they opened up the office in January of 2022, the UAP office. By July, they realized that a lot of this was happening above and in and out of the water, and they were going to focus on water.
Well, and they should. Do you think that there are UFO bases around the world underwater?
Well, absolutely underwater. Sure. I've in fact, I'm working on book number 3 about that, and I just did a presentation. And there's some of them are in this book, but I'm working on a presentation on witnesses who remember being taken underwater, and it's a really difficult thing to try and find, because when someone is abducted, a lot of times they'll remember being taken, they'll remember coming back. Through regression therapy, they'll remember what happened to them, bits and pieces. Nobody remembers the trip. And if you're going to abduct somebody, you don't want them to remember how they got there and coming back, because now they've given away the secret. We know there's underwater bases. Some of these witnesses have said that they've been there since the 50s. There was one witness that said that in the early 50s, they had built, I think it was 2. Another witness said that in the 1970s, they wanted it, by the end of the 70s era, they wanted to have 6 underwater in various places. I'm fairly sure there's one in and around Puerto Rico. There's another one in the water over off of the California coast. So there's bases, Mount Shasta. There's several other different mountains in different areas. I mainly just concentrate on water. But yes, I believe there's one over by Scotland, by England, over in that area. There's an underwater base. But I did find 12 people so far that remember being taken, and they remember going underwater, and they in different places. One was taken off of the Atlantic Ocean, and then remembers going underwater, and then ending up over in the Pacific Ocean, and then coming right.
What a trip!
And then the next thing they remembered, they were back they were in Florida again, 10 miles from where they were taken, right in front of their family. So yes, they've had bases here. We've had sightings there. There were Tic Tac sightings back in biblical times. There's descriptions in the Bible about that. I found a lot. One of the more interesting was William Schaffner. And I believe, I can't remember what year that was, but he was a pilot off of England that was in a dogfight with a UFO. And he ended up, he disappeared from radar, and they looked for him for 3 months. And after 3 months by sonar, they were able to find his airplane, and it was sitting on the ocean floor east Yorkshire, in the ocean, off of East Yorkshire, on the bottom of the ocean. When the divers went down there, the plane wasn't damaged at all. It was fully intact, and the canopy was still on it, still locked, but the pilot was gone.
Now that is just insane.
I mean, how when you crash into the water, the plane should have been destroyed.
Yeah.
And if he ejected, the canopy would have been blown, but it was fully intact, sitting underwater with the canopy on it, no pilot, and they never did find him.
Yeah, and there are a lot of cases where pilots or entire planes go missing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we can talk about that sometime too. How can people get a hold of both of your books?
Amazon.
Makes it easy. Super easy. Yeah. And you can visit Debbie's website, debbiediver.com. And there are links to the books. And do you know what the new book is going to be called?
No, I not quite sure yet.
Okay. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
All right.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we're out of time this evening again, but we will discuss more in the future, Debbie. And thank you for everything you do. Thank you for everything you do for MUFON. And you're just one of the best investigators I know. And it's been a pleasure working with you in Missouri MUFON.
Oh, thank you so much. I enjoy working with you. It's always so much fun. We,
It is, and
we
like you said,
always have an adventure. And someday we need to talk about that.
yeah, we should. we
They
have
never
a whole
believe
book
it.
right there.
Oh, right. They'd never believe what's happened to you and me.
No, they wouldn't.
No.
Not even with the video.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, Debbie. Talk to you later.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Debbie is always lots of fun. Oh, goodness. So, once again, make sure that you go and check out Amazon to check out both of Debbie's books. She's going to have a new one coming here pretty soon, probably 2025, I would guess. And with that, as soon as I find my video clips, we will be here next week, and I've got some really good shows coming up the next few weeks. So stay tuned and keep up with the NX Network, and also subscribe to the NX Network on YouTube so that you'll get notices whenever we have a new show. So I see you here again next week.